This is the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast. I'm James Tully. As we continue to help you rebound and come back and get back on your feet from everything that we're going through right now, my guest on this episode, somebody you might want to touch base with if you or somebody you know has really fallen on some hard times. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a chance to go out and shoot a feature story on the St. Vincent de Paul Community Kitchen. And I wouldn't have done that if I didn't meet the man who I have in studio as my guest today, Pete Scalia, joining me on the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast. Pete, thanks for being here.
No, thank you, James. My pleasure.
Hey, I met you a couple of months ago, and you're explaining to me what exactly it is you do at St. Vincent de Paul and what your mission is. And you got me. I came out. The hook was there. I knew this was newsworthy, and it was great. You're trying to end homelessness, and you guys are approaching it. You're not just a soup kitchen, and you want to make that very clear to me. No. We're going beyond that. I mean, why stop at just feeding the homeless? There's a lot more we can do.
Well, it is. It's this community kitchen and resource center, but I really have to stress, and you're so generous in that whole piece. I'm just one small cog in the whole thing. I consider myself nothing more than like a traffic cop.
Well, let's start with your title.
I try to direct the resources to the needs.
So you are the executive director at St. Vincent de Paul in Clearwater. Right. So you started as just a volunteer yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you also felt a calling to do more.
Yes.
So you get to this place, and to explain to the listeners here, you with a lot of help, and you're the first person to say you got a lot of help, but you wanted to mend some fences with the city,
right?
And you were able to do that.
Yeah, and that's really there was some animosity because the city's position was, if you only feed the people, you're not really solving the problem. And I think was a legitimate concern. Myself and the president, Jerry Garand, who deserves a tremendous amount of credit for making this all happen, we felt the same thing. That's not an unreasonable request. Is there something we could do to make that happen? And we happen to have a building, a 9,000 square foot building sitting next to us, the CHIPS building, that the city built originally. And it was sitting empty, and so it took a long time to try to find something that the city would allow us to put in there that met the current zoning restrictions, and that would also work. And we finally came up with this program. We got with Mike Gelazzo, who is the head of, he has PERC, and he had the STARS program. And what we basically said to Mike was, Mike, if you bring the STARS program up here and let the homeless people that are coming to our facility be members of or get enrolled in the STARS program, we'll give you this 9,000 square foot building rent free, because we just want to use it. We need the facility to be used to help people. And so that's what happened. And with a lot of volunteers' help from the kitchen, we were able to make that happen, and now we have the STARS program up and operating. And like I said to you before, we've had 127 people go through the program. 51 of those people have gotten their job training, gotten a job, got a roof over their head. And so you coined the phrase when we were talking, and it was great, one person at a time. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And
you ask only one thing of people if they're going to. If you're homeless and you're coming there to get a meal or whatever else, you ask one thing if they're going to enroll in the STARS.
Just be sober.
Be sober.
That's all.
That's it.
Yeah, what we found, there's a lot of programs for a lot of people all around the country, all around the city.
Sure.
All right. But sometimes, especially if they're a government-funded program, there's a lot of hurdles to get into the program. And when you're on the streets and you are a chronic alcoholic or a chronic drug user, and you need to have 6 months of sobriety before you can even enter the program, that first hurdle for many people, it's just impossible. So we say, look, come to this first day of orientation and be sober at orientation. The classes start the very next day. Yeah. Come to that class sober. Get that first day in, and then let's see what happens. By the middle of the third week, we know who's going to graduate, and on the Monday of the last week, the guys who are there, we know they're going to graduate, and that's when we sign them up so they can get their housing and stuff. because they're going to make it.
And you have little incentives along the way too. You're telling me about, like, if upon completion of just the first week, you've got gift cards.
Yeah, they get a gift card to go to, like maybe Bell's or Kohl's or somewhere, and they get themselves some fresh clothes. Or whatever it is, they're just different. Whoever donates the gift cards that we can use, we use.
Fine.
Maybe go to a restaurant and get something to eat.
Sure.
And then we also, because of the thrift store that we have, we give them fresh clothes. You know, when they first come into the program, we give them a couple of sets of, I think 3 sets of clothes. So they have a fresh shirt every day. They have fresh clothes. Because we teach them you're going to have to go out on an interview. We teach them how to do interviews. So, and then when they graduate, we make sure they have a good, you know, when they're going to that interview, we make sure they've got a good set of clothes, and they've got enough to get them going.
You know, when you go through the different years of broadcasting like I have, and becoming a news anchor now, I've been a news anchor at 4 different stations, 4 different cities. But you mentioned about how there is a lot of government assistance. There's a lot of programs out there that are meant to help people. You know, it's my job to bring attention to those. It's a large part of my job to make sure that they get the attention that they need. And I'm really glad I found you, because the more I learn about this, and I can tell you, it feels to me like just the thought and the hearts behind what you're doing, it's certainly in the right place. It certainly is.
Well, we have 135 volunteers, okay? Because we're there 7 days a week, and there are volunteers in different areas. There's people who work in the office, people in social services, sure, people in the kitchen and serving. And all of them come to it with, they get nothing out of it but the feeling that they're giving back.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's what drives it. That and the fact that the entire facility runs on volunteers and donations. And it's remarkable. We've been there for 35 years, and it always works. And I know there's a certain spiritual aspect to it. We're a Catholic lay organization, but we are truly non-denominational in who we serve. You come through the door, we're going to take care of you. But I'm an ordained minister, and I also I'm a great believer that the Spirit drives a lot of this. Many times, I have, and this just happened 2 weeks ago. We had to come up with a bill. An air conditioning unit went out on the building. It's a $2,100 bill. In the middle of August. In the middle of August.
In Florida.
There's no question we have to get this fixed. So we get it fixed, and I'm like, all right, where am I going to get $2,100 from out of, you know? And I'm telling you, the next day we got a check for $5,000 from a donor. Now, this donor donates several times a year, but it's unsolicited. I mean, they do it when they do it.
Yeah.
And it just, bang, here's the check. I open it up in the morning. It's like, okay, air conditioning's paid for. And that happens all the time. And I absolutely have to believe that's the Spirit coming through for us. And I do believe that.
It's a great thing to hear. He's Pete Scalia, Executive Director of St. Vincent de Paul, the community kitchen out there in Clearwater, joining me here on the Rebound podcast. Now, we have to talk a little bit about COVID-19, the pandemic, everything that's all the wrenches that's thrown in this world here. And, you know, I always come back to what Feeding Tampa Bay told me, and they were very emphatic about, hey, listen, you know, this is around June probably when they said we are seeing more people now more than ever before hopping in line for assistance for the first time. Not just needing meals, not just needing help, but for the first time. So you guys just became a very, even more important organization in my mind as we come out of this thing, and how it's ravaged our economy in some places, and people have lost their jobs. And unfortunately, some people probably have lost more than that, you know, their homes, and who knows.
We saw that early on, though. When it first hit, I guess we're going back to February now. It seems so long ago.
It's been a long year, Pete.
Yeah, February, March, when it first hit and businesses were closing down and the economy, you know, everything was shutting down. Yeah, we saw an absolute spike in our numbers. It went up probably 40% to start with. And we were faced with, how are we going to serve these people? Because none of my volunteers were coming in, right. Of course. Yeah. They didn't want to be exposed to it. And so, and we had the way we used to serve our meal was we would serve our meal on a tray, like cafeteria style. It would go down a line.
Sure.
And we couldn't do that. So we were forced to, we went, and we couldn't even bring them into the building. So we were determined that we were going to still be able to feed people. So we went to the white styrofoam to-go boxes that everybody's familiar with, and a box of juice and a bottle of water. And we scaled down our meal a little bit. Every day we used to make a fresh pot of soup. So we weren't making the soup because that's just another piece of styrofoam. So we made our meal, and what we did was we have a gate that lets them into the kitchen. We stopped them at the gate, and we handed them their boxes at 8 o'clock in the morning. They were getting their meals. And what we did was we let them have a second. If they wanted a second, they could have a second. We didn't want anybody to go away hungry. And that's what we did until whenever we hit phase 2 and we were allowed to let 50% of the people back into the building, which is what we're doing now. But because I'm still reduced on my volunteers, I'm still doing the to-go box. But other than that, it's working. And we never missed a day. We have never missed a day serving that place.
You're proud of that?
Yeah, I am, because with everything we were faced with COVID and hurricanes, we've never missed a day in 35 years. And I wasn't going to be the first one. And so
good for you, Pete.
We didn't,
Good for you. That's really good for you.
That was okay. But our numbers now have gone down, especially since the, like when the money started to flow from the federal government, we started to see then a reduction in people coming. The numbers dropped back down to almost where they were normally now. We're sitting right about at normal. I think that $1,200 check helped a lot of people. Families that needed it, they were able to do something with it, and that unemployment money was helpful to a lot of people. And part of the people that we serve are not just homeless. The first 65 people we feed in the morning are homeless. The rest of the people are people from the neighborhood who are just working poor.
You made a good point about that, though. You said anybody who comes by, we're going to give them a meal, because who knows, it could be somebody. If I can feed them lunch, maybe they can feed their family dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
That was kind of the statement, the analogy that you made.
Right.
I thought was great.
Yeah, I mean, we have cab drivers who will come here and come to the place and eat. And I've had people say, they have a job, why are you feeding them? And I say, I've made the food. I cook for 150 people. What do I care if the guy comes in and gets a meal? Sure. Maybe when he goes home tonight, he could feed his kid because he didn't have to eat a meal. He doesn't have to pay for a meal for himself. Yeah, you can't look at it that way. I often go to, I try to use scripture sometimes in a humorous way to get a point across. And somebody said that to me, and I said, I don't recall reading anywhere in scripture when Jesus fed the 5,000, he didn't say, here, go feed these guys. See those two guys over in the corner? I think they're trying to scam me. Don't give them any food. He fed everybody. And that's what we do. We feed everybody.
That's quite an operation you have going on there, too. We talked before. I was able to get my photographer, Jason Richards, who's so talented. But I told him, I said, we need to get to Pete early. We need to get to him early. If you can get there around 6 a.m., that'd be great. And he did, and he got a chance to see everything that goes into it, all your volunteers. Everyone's wearing masks. You're doing the social distancing stuff, everything that you have to do. We're talking giant vat of soup. You got people chopping everything you need to chop. You got the baked ziti, I think, was going on that day. It all looked great. And you made it very clear to me. You're like, look, the food here's good. We've got good ingredients. We're also knowing how to stretch a dollar.
Yeah, we do.
And so when you ask for donations and people to help out, you make it very clear, like, listen, monetary donations are great, and we do know how to get the most out of a dollar when it comes to getting our supplies, our food, everything we need here.
Yeah, our actual hard cost to feed a person is $1.18 per day. That's our net cost. So I always say, if you donate $1, let's not quibble over 18 cents. If you donate $1, you're feeding a person. And I don't know if you saw in our chapel, we have a wall. It's a memorial wall, and a lot of people opt to do that. They like to make a donation in memory of, and whatever the amount of money they make that donation in, on the plaque it reads, in the memory of Mary Jane Doe, 500 people fed. And it's up there on our wall, and it does a good thing.
It's a nice moniker. Yeah. Really nice moniker. I was going to say we should save the best for last, and that's what you told me, what this operation, the STARS program, has done for the city of Clearwater. Because by your estimation, you're saving the city a whole lot of money, which of course that trickles right on down everybody that lives in the city. So this is pretty important what you're about to say.
And this is really it is great because nationally the accepted number that it costs a municipality to deal with a homeless person is $35,000 a year. That is the number of times the police are called and have to deal with a homeless person. Hospital visit. If the ambulance comes, the fire department comes, they all have to they all mobilize for one homeless person.
It's straight up cost. It's cost to the municipality.
They go to jail for something, an open container beef or whatever.
Whatever.
Now they're in jail for a few days. That's the cost. They go to court. They need a public defender. It just adds up. And the accepted number nationwide is $35,000 per homeless person. Varies in areas, a lot higher in New York, San Francisco than it is here. But if that's the number and we've taken 51 people off the street, it's an easy equation. That's $1.5 million that we've saved the city. And the city recognizes that, I must say. For the people who live in Clearwater, government always gets knocked, all right? It's like, the government. But I must say, the city of Clearwater, the city manager, Bill Horn, the council, the city council, the new mayor, and the people who work in the city themselves, the actual, I'll call them the bureaucrats, but they're the people who really get things done. They're terrific. The police department in Clearwater under Chief Slaughter, and I got to mention Sergeant Fidelis, who is in our area.
Right.
They know the people. They know the clients, our clients. And if there's a problem, they're there to help. But we don't have as many problems as we have, this guy needs help. And it's amazing how often they are there to help. If somebody comes to me and says, I want to get off the street, I want to get sober, and I talk to them for a little while, and they're sincere, I'll take them outside. I'll call for a police unit, and a police unit will come, and I'll say, he needs to get down to St. Pete, to Daystar. It's Daystar, I believe, because he wants to get sober, and he's willing to check himself in for 72 hours. And they'll take him down there. No questions asked. And, they're like, am I under arrest? No, you're not under arrest. When you get down there, if you want to get out of the car and walk away, you can. But they'll transport you down there. They work with us. We see so much with the police, and they get such a bad rap. And I can't speak for those incidents, and I can't speak for other cities. But I can tell you here, on the side of the police car, it says to protect and serve. And our cops, they serve. I see it every day. Mm-hmm. And that's important to say that sort of thing. Things get lost in the fog of everything that's out there, but there's an awful lot of good people helping people who need it. The people on the streets, for the most part, are broken people. They need help. I say they're their own worst enemy in this sense. When you look at a homeless person, and we have showers, and we have laundry, and we have toiletries, so that they can, stay clean, stay healthy, stay hygienic.
Sure.
But the way they're dressed, the way they look sometimes is scary. It puts people off because they look a little scary. But they're lambs in wolves' clothing, to turn that phrase around. They're really not as threatening as you think. In fact, the people who prey on the homeless more than anyone are other homeless. That's what happens. And so you're out on the street, you have to be able to defend yourself from really other homeless people. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of very frightened people out there that are homeless. And, you find out when you can sit and you can talk to them. You have a cup of coffee with them, and you get to know what they have. I'm not talking about guys who maybe have a mental condition right now. It's a mental illness. That's a separate category.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, when you hear their story of how they ended up being homeless, and you've known them for years like I do now, you can't help but feel sorry for them. By the same token, people see me doing the things I do, and I've had volunteers that say, "Wow, you're too mean." It's like, I'm not mean. I'm where you're going to get some tough love from. I'm the guy who's going to say, "No, you can't have that. No, you're not going to do that because you know better." And somebody has to help you look out for yourself. And so we'll do that too. We do that part of it. And it works most of the time.
We know there's a real team effort going on over there at St. Vincent de Paul. Pete Scalia. Last thing, you got me involved, and I'm so happy. There's a fundraiser coming up, just been postponed.
Yep.
That's all that happened. It's based around the Kentucky Derby. I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a couple moments to let people know how they can be a part of this.
Well, that was going to be Saturday, right? That was
It
the
sure
first
was.
Postponement from the original date.
Got a calendar reminder this week on that. I'm like, well, unfortunately, that'll be happening later.
Because of our partners in this, the Sheraton Sand Key over in Clearwater Beach, they were gracious enough to let us extend it out to May 1st, 2021, the next Kentucky Derby. Hopefully COVID will be all gone and we're able to get back to normal. We will be having our annual fundraiser. And my background is in, prior to getting involved in this, I was in hotel casinos all of my life. So we have a way that we have the Kentucky Derby happening at the Sheraton Sand Key, and everybody who is in the room will have a horse in the race. And that's as far as I'm going to go, but everybody's got a horse in the race, and it should be pretty exciting. The grand prize to the winner is a all-expense paid vacation to, now it will be the 2022 Kentucky Derby, and that was donated by one of our benefactors. And so that's the grand prize, and we're going to have all sorts of raffles and silent auctions and things like that.
Table games with some fun money.
There will be casino games in there as well, and we have a great jazz ensemble, a 7-piece jazz ensemble. It's just a great party. The food is authentic.
You're going to have a great MC.
Yep. Oh, yeah, our MC is you.
That's right. Here's what I'm going to do. In the description of this podcast, there'll be a link to the website for St. Vincent de Paul, and there'll also be a link to the feature story we just did with Pete, so you can get a really good idea of what they're doing over there and what they're cooking up, because as you just heard, it's a lot of good stuff. Pete, thanks for being here.
James, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
New episodes of the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast drop every Wednesday morning. We have a video version of this for you on the ABC Action News streaming channel. Just download that to your favorite streaming device. This has been the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast. I'm James Tully.